Another tool we have in the toolbox is the multi-dimension tool. So if I select the multi-dimension tool and I select the refresh button, this is going to allow me to select the part that I want to view the dimensions for. So in this case here I've selected the bearing part on the side of our assembly here. If I just zoom in onto our part here, and you can see that all the dimensions are displayed for this part. If I hover over the name of the dimension, you can see this highlights it onto our model there. So in this case here, I may actually want to change the value of this dimension from D115, and we want to call that height. So if I wanted to do this without having the multi-dimension tool available to me, obviously first I'd have to activate the part within the assembly. I'd then have to find the feature on the part and then find the correct sketch to rename that dimension. Obviously using the multi-dimension tool, with a simple click, I can then rename the correct dimension, the correct name. If I just scroll down here, I can see D116, and I'm going to call that dimension width. And if I continue to scroll down, D118, I will rename depth. So as well as being able to rename them there, we can actually change the values as well. So here, for example, if I select that 47.5, and I can change that to 50. And the depth as well, I can just change to 50. We can see on the left-hand side of each dimension, we've got the icon to let us know what kind of dimension that is. So in this case with the width, we've got a length dimension. And if we go further down here, we can see we've also got some round dimensions and a diameter dimension in there as well. If we actually select this icon here, this is also going to let us select a dimension from the model. So in this case here for the width, if I select this cutout and I want the width of our bearing bracket here to be the same as that cutout and take that 70 dimension from the model. You can see that's now placed that dimension into my width field, and we can use that dimension to regenerate our new model. This will not create a relationship between that dimension and the one we've just placed in the width. It's purely copying and pasting it into our model. We can also see here that one of our dimensions, D7, is actually highlighted in yellow, and this means that we can't change this dimension because this dimension is driven by a relation in our model. If we're happy with the changes we've made, we may just make one more small change in this diameter here, for example, and we'll change that to 8. When we're happy with those, if we save and regenerate, and we can see there straight away, those changes we've made to the model, we have pushed through, and it's regenerated those changes for us. We can also filter our dimensions on here. So if we have dimensions that we've changed the name of, for example, our height, width, and depth, we can put the filter on. So we're just going to display the dimensions that have a changed name, as these may be the dimensions that are the critical dimensions that need to be changed in our model. And this then filters out all the dimensions with their original names on there. So if we just remove that filter again, and we can see all our dimensions are then displayed. So as well as being able to display the dimensions for a particular part in a model, we can also select a feature of a model as well. So if we just zoom out here, we can see we've got quite a complex sweep on the side of our model here. We may want to make a change to those dimensions. So what we can do is we can select the feature for dimension view, and we can select that sweep. Here within this sweep, we can see we've got many dimensions in here. And again, what we can do is we can just scroll down, and as we hover over there, we can actually display our dimensions. So here we've got some round dimensions, and we may just want to be able to change those. But to make it easy to display them, we can change the names initially. So we can change that to R1, just scrolling down, change that to R2, to R3, and finally to R4. So now if we filter our results, we can see we've actually filtered those down. And when we hover over there, we can display our dimensions clearly. If we actually wanted to change these dimensions without using the multi-dimension editor, because we've got quite a complex feature here, not only would we have to go into the feature, but we'd also go into the rolling menus to be able to find and define the correct cross-section that those dimensions were actually referenced to. So by using the multi-dimension editor, this makes it much quicker to be able to quickly see all the dimensions within that feature, rename the critical dimensions, and filter out the dimensions that are not necessarily useful to you. So if we just remove that filter again, we can see how many actual dimensions there would be on that model otherwise. So the multi-dimension editor allows us very quickly to be able to select parts or features, display the dimensions on those, change the names, and also change the values of those features, of those dimensions, very quickly. Without the multi-dimension tool, we'd have to activate the part, we'd have to find the corresponding feature for the dimension that we wanted to change, and this would be a much longer process than being able to select the part using the multi-dimension editor.